what could be wrong with the field? Well, we're gonna tell you. Anyways, so first con is to us, or to me, to us, it was the hours. There was a time we actually had to wake up at 3 o'clock. I can never forget that day. This was the first time I've ever woken up in my life at that time to go to any place. I hadn't even woken up at that time to go to the airport to travel to Nigeria. We woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning to get to the hospital at 4. And for what? Because of surgery. That was the one and only time we did that. But even after that, we still had to wake up around 4:30 in order to get there for 5:30 to pre-round on our patients, and then round with the resident and attending. And then after that, we're pretty much free to join surgeries in the OR. But for the most part, we woke up really early. And for residents, because we were students, I guess we left at a reasonable time. But as a resident, they didn't leave there until like 6, 7. So imagine they were up since 4 or 5 in the morning. We would leave around 3, 4, but they were still there. And as an attending, as a resident, we had to do 24-hour calls.
We had to do 24-hour calls.
24-hour calls.
To this day, I don't know for what.
Yeah, at least for us, at least they were doing things. But for us, we were doing things as well. We were learning. I'm not gonna lie, doing 24-hour calls were, for me, depending on who your resident, who you were with that night, they determine how much you learn and what you're able to do. So if you have residents who don't care that you're there, you'll be in the hospital for 24 hours, sleeping or studying. And this is something you can do in your apartment. But then if you have residents who are willing to teach you, you're gonna learn a lot that night. Because at night it's when the crazies come out. Is when you have a lot of people in the ED. So at every second you're hearing trauma alert, trauma alert, trauma alert, trauma code. And so you have to go to the trauma bay. And you see a lot of interesting things. And then if your resident is willing to teach you and wants you to do stuff, you can do things that night, especially because you're the only medical student on call for each night. So if you're the only student, all of the work is going to be concentrated on you. So you have more abilities.
So also, as we're talking about hours and time, it takes a lot of time to become a surgeon. So that's another huge con. So you usually to become a medical doctor, you usually do undergraduate 4 years, and then another 4 years of medical school. That's 8 years out your life already. And then you have to do residency. So for surgery, residency is a whole 5 years, and that's just to be a general surgeon. And if you want to specialize, let's say you want to be a cardiothoracic surgeon, it's a couple of other years. You were saying neurosurgery.
Neurosurgery is 7 years.
A moment of silence for all the people doing neurosurgery.
Imagine being a resident for 7 years.
Yeah, and with that comes, you have to think about that financially. In terms of, on your resident, you're not really getting paid that much, so you have to think about how you're gonna survive during those 7 years. Are you still gonna depend on your parents? Are you gonna what are you gonna do? You have to think about your future. So if you're planning to have a family, if you're female and you're planning to have children, so that's another thing you have to consider. Not saying that you can't do these things while you're a resident, but a lot of these things are usually best saved for after, because you're more stable and you have more money and you're more knowledgeable, so you feel more comfortable taking a break later on in life. So it's just that it's definitely a time commitment.
Another con that I would say is that there's an obvious hierarchy. Of course, when you're the attending, you're the surgeon, everyone is looking up to you. You feel like a god with a lowercase g. But then when you're the resident, especially when you're the medical student, you know that you're a medical student. At least when I was in internal medicine or family medicine or other fields, I was treated like I was a part of the team, I guess. Personally, this is how I felt. Azan, did you feel the same way?
Oh,
did
yeah.
you feel like you're
yeah,
more
definitely. I mean, a lot of it, I think, may have to do with like how much you can contribute. So there are greater ways to contribute when you're in family medicine or internal medicine, but at no point they're not about to let us do any surgeries.
Yeah, sure.
So that's one thing. But also there's also sometimes there can be a feeling like, do they see me? Am I really? There's not much you can do, but also the feeling of being welcomed, of being a true team player, or being useful is not always there. To be honest, sometimes I don't even know if this is something I should mention, but sometimes like
Spill the tea, sis.
no. Sometimes like I'll be standing there and I'm like, do these people see me? Like I see me?
Yeah, exactly. Am I invisible?
No, fact. I'll be like, no, because you're lucky just standing there and people pass you and they're talking and you're like, you're right in front of them, and never once do they glance at you and they just walk away. Now, I'm not saying like all surgeons are like that, but there's different specialties have like different personalities. Something like peds or psych, they might be more warm and welcoming and friendly because of the nature of their job, but surgery is kind of more of blunt, every man for himself kind of atmosphere there. And their hierarchy means like you can't really challenge anyone that's above you, and whatever the person above you says goes.
Whatever rules they already have set in stone, that's what you're expected to abide by. So yeah, I definitely agree with you.
Another con is malpractice. So surgeons tend to get sued quite a lot, as you would imagine, because there's so many things that could go wrong in a surgery. So they tend to have to pay a lot more in malpractice insurance. And I was reading somewhere that at least 80% of surgeons will or have been gotten a malpractice lawsuit. So that's another thing you should be concerned about, that at some point one of your patients that's smelling with you will sue you. And another thing that's kind of closely tied to that is you come very close to death. So in other specialties such as in family medicine or psychiatry, you usually don't see your patients dying a lot. But in surgery, you're probably getting some of the sickest patients who really need the surgery to survive. Or something could go wrong with just a simple surgery and having the patient die during the surgery, which is what we call a table death. And that can be very mentally taxing on you as a person. So you really have to consider, is this something that I'm ready to see possibly on a weekly, daily basis versus once in a while in other fields. So if I were to do a final reflection in terms of surgery as a whole, so I came into surgery kind of open-minded and interested to see, because currently it may change. I'm interested in anesthesiology, which is like the closest specialty to surgery because they work hand in hand. So it's kind of interesting to be on the other side of the drape per se, and to get to experience the other side of it. So I think regardless of whatever or however it went, my time doing surgery should help me in my career going forward. Then overall, during my surgery rotation, the people I was rotating with, they were like all great people, including this person. And so I actually enjoyed myself a lot and had a lot of fun with okay, relax, with the people that I did the rotation with, which made a whole of a difference.
Definitely, I agree. The people really made it worthwhile, to be honest. They made it worthwhile. I'm so happy that I did this rotation with them, including you, Frank. I guess my reflection would be my last advice, actually, for anyone who's deciding on what to do. I feel like the first thing that you need to decide is it medicine or is it surgery? When I say medicine, it's not just internal medicine, all right? Is it internal medicine? Is it family medicine, pediatrics, psychiatry? Although psychiatry is kind of its own little specialty. Or is it OB? No, actually OB falls under surgery. Actually, so is it surgery or is it medicine? Surgery, you work with your hands. And if you know that surgery is all that you see yourself doing and that you love it, that's the kind of person that I would recommend surgery to. Because surgery, the lifestyle is going to, what's the word? It's going to try you. The hours are really going to test you. It's going to test your endurance. surgery in general is an endurance. Medicine in general is an endurance, but as far as I have seen in surgery, you really need to love this field to go into it. So if you see yourself doing nothing else, I think, yeah, surgery is fine. And also, I guess my last reflection too would be, I guess the rotation is really what you make of it. As Azana said, the people made it worthwhile. For me, it was the people, and also I had a particular experience where I followed one patient from the ICU throughout many of his surgeries, and then until he left, I was with him. Yeah, he was quadriplegic. And you know, he couldn't do a lot of things on his own, but the fact that he was just so welcoming, so nice, and we just clicked, we bonded for some reason. He even wanted me to pray for him at times, and you know, he was really interested in just talking. So I was that person who spoke to him. I was that person who I was with him throughout most of his stay at the hospital. So that experience, I guess, humbled me, because it was like, although I was this bottom of the tier medical student, I was having some type of impact on a patient's life, and it felt good. It felt really good. And I can see that's probably why some people go into medicine, because they feel like they're making an immediate impact on the life of a patient. And that's how I felt. That's really how I felt. So I would say that was the highlight of my experience, along with the people. And there were probably a lot more instances where I was able to connect with patients, but that one in particular is one that I appreciated and that I think I'll hold on to for the rest of my life. But yeah.
He called her his guardian angel.
Yeah, he called me his guardian angel.
Was looking for her when he woke up out of surgery.
Yeah.
Which was, the sweetest thing.
Really. I think you told me it was a resident who had mentioned it. They said, oh, he woke up and was saying Gladys or something. Where's Gladys? I was like, oh my gosh, he was looking for me. Oh my gosh. I mean, I don't want anyone to stalk me later in the future, but it was nice. He actually wanted me to be there. You know, he wanted me to be around. He didn't remember the surgeon's name, didn't remember the resident's name, but he remembered my name. Again, the bottom tier medical student. But overall, it is what you make of it. Well, that's our little video on the pros and cons of surgery. Currently, we're on psych.
Stay tuned.
And they call it a psychation, so we'll let you know how that goes. So, yeah. All right. Once again, my name is Gladys.
Azana.
And we are third year medical students. All right, this is bye.